I'm Ismael Castillo Reyes. I have an appointment as a professor, psychology professor at the University of Puerto Rico, in which I also am the head of a lab, one of the principal investigators of an EEG lab that we just built last year. That lab received an NSF grant, National Science Foundation grant, and we just built the lab with EEG stuff. A lot of free caps, a lot of amplifiers, and we conduct basic research like EEG, traditional research, but we also conduct some QEEG stuff right there. Right now, we are conducting some research related to internet gaming disorder, and we are doing brain mapping pre and post after some gaming experience. We are particularly targeting adolescents who has problems with gaming or are addicted to gaming. Also, in our research agenda, we have a lot of research ongoing. Some of them are dissertation projects of my students. Uh, as you can see, well, one of my projects is very targeted to music. As you can see, my background, I am a musician. I play guitar, but my main instrument is piano. My piano is right here on my side, and my future research is it's gonna be almost focused 100% on music and EEG, and doing something with neurofeedback, EEG, QEEG. Well, it's a lot of stuff. It's gonna be pretty exciting. So for today, we have a very short introductory webinar to QEEG, which is titled From Signal to Meaning, QEEG in Brain Health, Clinical Aspect, Treatment of Brain Disorders. The purpose of this webinar is also to encourage you to register to our next QEEG workshop, which is going to be held on April. I think it's going to be a 4-day workshop.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, is on April. Oh my God, one April 11th and 12th and 18, 19. It's a
So we
4-day.
divided it in two parts. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it's 2 parts. So we will have a more complete experience of what is QEEG. So let me start this quickly because after this I have some QEEG appointments in my office. Uh, oh, all right. So EEG, I like to tell to my students and the student I supervise in QEEG that one of the things that EEG help us and the QEEG help us is to articulate better questions, to articulate better hypotheses of our patients or our participants' complaint. With the EEG, we can map what is happening if we found, for example, an abnormal brain function. We can do that looking at the EEG. We can also correlate that abnormal brain activity to a particular pathology that may be expressed as a physiological complaint or cognitive complaint. We can also have nowadays a look of how optimal brain function looks like. The QEEG help us to see that, but also we have the opportunity to predict the brain functionality. This is pretty interesting. You might anticipate, for example, cognitive decline doing some QEEG. And if you register to the workshop, I will give you some examples of how in my office, for example, in my private practice, I have looked onto very young people with some phenotypes of EEG biomarkers that also match the history, the family history of Alzheimer, for example, and how in the young 30s you can see some markers there, and then you can decide what treatment or what type of intervention you will go with that people to optimize that brain functionality. So when we do EEG, we transform the signal, we decompose the signal into frequencies. And maybe you're here and you have some knowledge about this. When you decompose the EEG signal, you will find some frequencies. One of them is called gamma, which is a pretty fast frequency of the brain. It oscillates like this. Are you seeing the mouse moving? Okay. You may see something like this oscillating pretty fast, which in an optimal state, in a healthy individual, might express something like this, and a state of heightness, awareness, integration, insight. I believe Thomas Feiner have done some research on meditators and how gamma express on those type of people. But on the other side, if, for example, you are working with an unhealthy brain or a brain that is not having healthy patterns, you may also find that excess of gamma may produce or may correlate with some of the most common pathologies that we work: anxiety, hyperarousal, panic, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, rumination, etc. Beta, I hope you all are in beta state right now. Focus on me, focus on the webinar, alert, active mind. Beta in an optimal state is good to have beta, but in some people, beta might be expressing a little bit, beta can be a little bit dysregulated. And for example, I have done a brain map on me, and I have a little excess of, of beta, high beta in my posterior cingulate, and that, for example, correlate with stress, worry, insomnia, which is my main thing. I'm working in rigid thinking, obsessive behavior. Then when you close your eyes, you may produce another frequency which is called alpha. And when I teach QEEG, I focus, I give a lot of attention on alpha. Alpha can give you a lot of information about the state of the default mode network and how the brain is switching from different networks. It's pretty interesting frequency to look at. It tells a lot. Alpha in a healthy brain, you will see this type of correlates, relaxed, calm. You will feel a depressant moment. But for example, if you have an excess of alpha in particular sites of the brain, that may express as daydreaming, lack of focus. Indeed, this is one of the ADHD subtype, having excess alpha, depression, brain fog. Depending on what hemisphere has more alpha or less alpha, you might be looking to some avoidance behavior. Pretty interesting. Theta, for example, hope you are not in theta state right now, because you will be like dreaming at this moment. Theta is important. Is a healthy frequency. All of these frequencies are healthy, but when you present them in the incorrect moment, that's where pathology emerge. No, theta is needed for to reach the sleep state. When you fall asleep, you transition from alpha to theta to delta. And in an ultimate brain state, it will represent creativity, deep state, inner journey. But in excess, you will have a dreamy brain, like some subtype of ADHD, distractibility, impulsivity, brain fog, learning difficulty. For example, if you found a lot of theta in the posterior part of the brain. And delta, well, if you're in delta right now, you're sleeping. So I hope you're not sleeping, you are alert, you're in better state. Delta might express when you are sleeping unconscious, you're still, but If, for example, you are in awareness state, on a conscious state, you are alert, but you present a lot of delta. That could be an expression of learning disabilities depending of the location in the brain. It usually very common on people who had TBIs or traumatic brain injuries, for example. I have just ended a research on a TBI. It was a case study, neurofeedback case study on TBI, and people who have this type of lesion on the brain, could be TBI, could be stroke, who have may express a lot of delta. Uh, and it's related uh, to the metabolism changes on the synapses. All right, that's why delta may show on those type of patients. Severe fog, poor sleep quality, developmental delays. And why this is important? Because measuring the brain may give us an idea on how to train or where to train the brain with, for example, neurofeedback. Maybe most of you are very familiar with neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is one of the outer neuroregulation techniques that some of us work, but there are other techniques like brain stimulation or deep stimulation or TDCS, I believe, transcranial, direct current stimulation, and all other techniques. Also, nowadays, measuring the brain, doing a QEEG may guide a better pharmacological planning, treatment. Interesting. So when neurofeedback, we have, depending of what we were looking in a raw EEG, for example, if you do that, you may have a lot of options to target that dysregulation. For example, there has been something, a protocol, a classical protocol, which is called alpha training. Uh, uh, Also, there is another like, it's not a modification. It just add another frequency which is called alpha theta training, which both of them are really effective on anxiety disorders, stress related disorders. Alpha theta training, for example, was one of the classical protocols on a neurofeedback field, which was first tested on PTSD, um, post-traumatic stress disorder population, and then was applied on addiction, as people who have substance abuse. And it was very interesting because people who has alcohol addiction, for example, they may present a lot of high beta, and they use the alcohol to produce alpha. um, when you get into the psychopharmacology topics, you will know that alcohol regulates or modulates GABA, which is the principal inhibitor on our brain. And when you consume alcohol, modulates GABA. GABA produce alpha. They automedicate themselves with alcohol because they are lacking of alpha, for example. In neurofeedback, we can target that with this kind of protocols. We also have in neurofeedback uh, like classical high beta down training, which also works really good on GAD or generalized anxiety disorders, obsessive behavior, panic disorder. Another classic, very, very, very prominent um, neurofeedback protocol is called SMR training, which was first tested on animal model with cats, and then it was also tested on ADHD, specifically on hyperactive type. And we have done since the 70s, I believe, maybe before that. SMR training has been like the standard of traditional neurofeedback in combination with high beta down and zeta down, which is this right here, another very classical training. Also very useful for ADHD, inattentive, subtype, daydreaming, brain fog, depression, mild TBI. So when we see an EEG and we see this list, chaotic list of neurofeedback protocols, we can get like this, very trouble. How can we manage all this information? How can we plan a treatment or an intervention that can target the brain with a specificity? So there go the QEEG. And that is the usefulness of getting familiar with QEEG, because it will enhance, it will refine the way you may look onto the people's or your patients' complaints, and also it will open you into this other way to look at the EEG. For example, a traditional EEG may look like this. In your If you look at this image in your left side, that is a raw EEG trace, a 19-channel raw EEG trace, and you might identify in the course, in the QEEG course, I show the student how to read 19-channel. It is really important. It is mandatory to learn how to read a raw EEG and on different montage also. But here, well, you can look at on a few formologies, EEG phenomena, some type of activation, spikes, etc. But nowadays, we have the opportunity to use a sophisticated procedure called quantitative electroencephalography to to translate those signals into these beautiful graphics, which tell us uh, it tells the same story, but how can I say this? With within another perspective. Let's say it like that. And then you have here what is called an EEG spectrum. This these signals here are extracted from the raw EEG, but here now you can see how the amplitudes we'll talk about that in the QEEG workshop in April, how the amplitudes behave per frequency. Or here in the X plane, you will see the frequency from 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and those frequencies are defined like gamma, for example, which is right in the high frequencies, beta, alpha, right here at 10, theta at 4, delta at 0 to 3. So then you can see on the spectrum and see, oh, well, it seems that in alpha there is a peak. What means that peak? Well, we'll speak about that in the workshop. But also, when you do QEEG, you can also translate in those in these beautiful brain maps, which not only give me the activation expressed in colors, like red is a lot of activation, blue is less activation. Not only you have the activation variable, you have also the site or the brain site variable. So you can localize, more or less localize, where is the maximum expression of those excessive frequencies, or no, or where is the locations that are not producing enough voltage, like these blue sites that we are seeing right here in the temporal sites. So QEEG help us to see other things, to see other ingredients of the overall raw EEG. QEEG is also all about normative database. When we do QEEG, we use a term called C-score. If you are in the psychology field, psychiatry field, or anything, or any field related to mental health or physical health. Maybe we have here some physicians. We are very familiar with this, what we call C-scores. So since the 80s, there has some companies, there has been some research that have record EEGs from different cohorts of age and gender, and they have normalized it. Yeah, well, if I'm going into details, you have to wait to the QEEG workshop to in order for me to give more details about how is this done. But in general, you have a database of a lot of brains, and then you average them, and the average is close to zero. And whatever is deviated, it could be a brain side, it could be a frequency. You will see the brain maps coloring different. For example, there is a common QEEG cutoff. Whatever we see above -2 and +2, we consider a statistical significant deviation. In QEEG, we just compare the brain performance in terms of activation, frequency activation to a similar population, a similar cohort to our individual. So when we see a red line or a red dot in the maps, we are seeing a deviation from the normal. Um, and in QEEG, sometimes the deviations are a red flag of the state of health of our participant, our subject. Sometimes the red dots or the blue dots might be an exceptionality. Maybe it's good for the individual. And in order to discriminate from what is good, what is not that good, you need to get familiar with the QEEG and to take courses. I've been in the field in the QEEG field since 2018, and I have been taking so much course. I don't stop to learn, and I'm also learned about my students. Usually in our workshop, it's like it's eternal. You won't stop learning, interpreting EEG. And nowadays I do more things that are not that related to QEEG. I do other measurements. I got really passionate. Hopefully you will get as passionate as me. All right, so right here on your right side, you might see the like a typical summary, a QEEG brain map summary, in which is delimited on per frequency. Delta map. We have delta maps, theta maps, alpha maps, beta, high beta. And what we do reading these maps, we identify where is the brain deviating. For example, is in this illustration, we see some red dots on the frontal lobe in the low frequency. That may have some meaning, and definitely will have some meaning. We also can have a look on some connectivity measurements that we have nowadays, and these are really important. Uh, it's not only important how to read like the activation maps. It's also really important to see how the brain is communicated with other sites. Uh, and, well, when I teach and when I do like private lessons or mentoring, we focus a lot on how this on the upper side on this line right here in theta, for example, may represent something in coherence, and how these two maps relate themselves, and how the phase like may relate to coherence, and so on. This type of measurement supports clinical diagnosis and provide objective neurophysiological data, guides personalized neurofeedback or neuromodulation intervention. And also it's very useful once you got used to it. It's pretty easy to conduct and brain mapping to track the recovery, cognitive recovery of the performance of the individual over time. For example, if you're doing neurofeedback, so every 10 to 15 sessions, then you do a brain map to see what's happening in the brain. And it is once you get to learn this. it's kind of easy. Well, easy, quote unquote. It takes work, but once you practice and practice and practice, it will become second nature for you. Applications of QEEG. Uh, right now, QEEG is one of the EEG strategies or techniques that are, for me, this is my opinion, mandatory. It's always, if you have the technology, do a map to see how the supposedly ADHD might express in the brain. Maybe ADHD, I'm sorry, maybe the ADHD just another symptom. When you do the QEEG, you may found the cause. You may found other thing that open your eyes and oh wait, ADHD is just an expression of other thing that it's in the baseline. The same with depression, autism, and many more. QEEG has been applied to obviously normal people and to people with some exceptionalities, brain exceptionalities. It gives you detailed insights into individual brain function. It gives us a more precise look on how to target brain site with neurofeedback. And also in research, which I also do, for example, Thomas Fenner have record a lot of people who are in the who are meditators have look on some crazy things on those EEGs because it gives us information about the state of consciousness, general consciousness of the individual. Also, nowadays we have biomarkers. The field have grown so much that research from I believe 15 years ago has identified patterns that almost always correlate with very common psychopathologies, and that is called biomarker match or phenotype match. This is also a thing that makes the QEEG very useful. For example, we have our research have point out that, for example, alpha band have some patterns that are very visible in some neuropsychiatric disorder. And for example, here we have a disorder which is called depression. But in terms of QEEG, we have found that people who are vulnerable, I hope I am pronouncing vulnerable, you, uh, well, that are prompt to get depression or low mood may have some left alpha expression, excess alpha in the left side, frontal left side of the brain. We also have identified some phenotypes of anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, in which when you look at the alpha map, it may look like a blue map. Uh, and often, when you see a blue map in alpha, you may see a red map in beta. That is an anxiety biomarker. We also have seen pattern of uh, um, decrease posterior alpha in people who have cognitive decline. I have also seen this in PTSD and post-traumatic stress disorder. ADHD has also an alpha biomarker. If you have frontal alpha, that may correlate with ADHD subtype, inattentive subtype. Again, people who has anxiety and stress may have like a bluish alpha map in the QEEG report. Here we have a PTSD biomarker in which we have less alpha in the right side of the brain that might correlate with um, uh, like avoidance. Avoidance is one. It's not here. Well, that correlate with avoidance. Also link it to vigilance, anxiety. We also have a chronic pain uh, phenotype marker, like which just look like this, an excess of alpha in the sensory motor cortex. People who has like the pain uh, how can I say this? The pain is all the physical pain is registering in our homunculus. If you have that neurons right there altered, you may process pain a little bit different to typical people, for example. We also have QEEG beta biomarkers like posterior high beta, which correlate with anxiety, low SMR, which is one of the things we look into ADHD, uh, uh, hyperactive or hypermotor subtype, high beta over alpha on frontal sides, people who had chronic stress, high beta, theta beta ratio, which correlates with ADHD inattentive subtype, low theta beta ratio, which is the same as this one. People who are over aroused, anxious, hypervigilance. We also have the frontal beta asymmetry, which is very interesting because if it's in the right side, but you will get like a withdrawal type of effects, negative effects, etc., etc. We also have neurobiomarkers for theta, ADHD, frontal theta, depression, some alteration in our anterior cingulate, anxiety, less posterior theta, cognitive decline, an elevation of global theta, PTSD, some alteration in our posterior cingulate, and in these cases that we see some alteration in our temporal lobes, that might be related to epilepsy. And when you do QEEG and you learn how to read the raw EEG, you might detect some of the epilepsy morphologies that are really quite interesting. Some people with ADHD or autism has some spikes on the temporal lobes, and they might be respondent to anti-epileptics, for example. And there's no way to know if you don't know how to map the brain and you don't know how to read a QEEG map or read a raw EEG, for example. So here we have an example of an 11-year-old patient which has, well, the main symptoms were ADHD, but also uh, he was reporting insomnia, no response to medication. And also, when we do this, we don't look at maps only. We look at the maps. Our maps are not people. We need to search. Well, I am a psychologist. This is part of our practice. No, we need to look at the context because the brain responds to our context. In this case, the parent went through a complicated divorce last year before the mapping, and when we have a look into the maps, look at the partners right here. They don't really match ADHD biomarkers from ADHD. They match better a pattern of traumatic stress. And maybe the ADHD symptoms are just an expression or of something else. In this case, is the traumatic stress. And there has been some beautiful research that have been published very recently that relates traumatic stress to ADHD. And maybe this person may not, this kid may not be responding to ADHD medication. Maybe he needs something else. And QEEG might guide you to whatever is appropriate to target this brain dysregulation and in this case, in this kid, that maybe neurofeedback might be a better option for him. Why QEEG should be important? I've been speaking about this since I started the workshop. It helps us to early detect whatever is happening because we have indicators of, for example, cognitive aging. And when you, for example, have a very young guy, a woman, and you see some patterns that might give you a guide. You may formulate hypotheses of how that might evolutionate on his developmental when that guy or girl start aging. It can help us early detect and also uh, plan our more precise intervention to slow down that aging or that uh, how is it called? Uh, I don't have the word in English right now. It's neurodegenerative. That's the word. Neurodegenerative disorder, in which the cognitive aging goes faster than in normal people. And obviously, QEEG is important because it just gives us information about the state of consciousness. And the consciousness research this is one of my favorite topics in the neuroscience field in general. So, in the QEEG workshop, I'm gonna present this very briefly, but Thomas has been developing with my help this AI companion for QEEG interpretation, and I have to tell you, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, when we started this project, the AI was not that intelligent. Now it's more. It's pretty precise. We are amazed. We have created a monster, and if you get to register into the QEG workshop, we will present a little bit more about this. Yeah, IFEN Neuropath Finder, which is an AI companion to EEG interpretation, QEEG interpretation. And this AI companion, which is, I have to clarify this AI is must be used for educational and research purpose. You need to get knowledge about QEEG to get help from the AI. If you don't know how to read EEG, AI may not help you a lot. But if you get to know how to conduct an EEG recording and you know how to interpret the QEEG, the AI system may enrich your interpretation. So we have a dual mode analysis on that AI companion. You have two options. For example, you may select a priori if you want the interpretation based on symptoms, but also like ADHD symptoms, and then the interpretations may be locked into that profile, for example. But you can also select QEEG first, which is the way I like to interpret the QEEGs. I like to always do it blind. I usually do QEEG. I don't know much about the person. Then when we meet and discuss the maps, then we do the matching of what I see, what I'm seeing in the maps, and what the person is living. And the AI also do that. It start blinds. It just do QEEG first, and then it may discover within itself, algorithms, where are the phenotypes, where are what detects. It's awesome. And we have developed this so you can upload, for example, some QEEG Pro data, NeuroGuide data. I haven't done this yet, but it can also read accelerated maps and help you how to interpret them. As I said, it can identify. We have polished it in a way that it when I compare my reports to the AI reports, I get like 90% match. And sometimes the AI might identify other phenotypes that I was blind. Uh, so that's why this companion may enrich the way you see the QEEG. It gives you a confidence assessment. It's a percent. How sure you may that detector, for example, is functioning. Uh, and here you can see like an example, an illustration how that look. For example, if you upload some QEEG uh, document, you must upload an Excel file that QEEG Pro or NeuroGuide gave you. You put it right here, and the AI companion can detect this phenotype, for example, generalized cortical over-synchronization, 75 confidence. It gives you a confidence on how this phenotype match the EEG of the subject, of the individual you just measure. So uh, tested a lot. It almost always match. Sometimes maybe the priority, maybe it puts something at 75 confidence that I will have put on 70 or 60, but it's just a guide. It is just a guide on how to identify the phenotypes. And sometimes the AI might have looked something that I didn't look at first. It's awesome. Also, we have some more professional science, which responds to the highest clinical standards. I believe this is more this is algorithm based, machine learning based. For example, QEEG Pro can give you this type of reports, very interesting reports that can assess. Hopefully, you can see this picture well in your computer. It can give you the brain state per networks. Here, right here, you're looking at the emotional regulation cortex network and how brain areas might be hyperactive or hypoactive. It gives you a network connectivity, accelerated connectivity. It can also point you if you are seeing a possible pathology there, and I need mark right here. Also have a biomarker match that looks like this. The biomarker match just establish the possibility of you getting diagnosed with this typical neuropsychiatric disorders like you're seeing there. And if you get some green, I don't know how to say this in English, but some green colors pointing into the a pathology, but that's a percent of probability of diagnosis because the EEG match that that symptomatology. It's pretty useful, pretty interesting. Also, QEEG Pro give you an accelerator maps that are also very informative. It gives you a 3D plane of the brain. Like different planes like horizontal plane, coronal plane, sagittal plane. So you can look at the side of the brain with the major deviation, and it gives you the C score. How much deviate is that brain area to from the norm, and also give you the area, the number, the Brodmann area number, and the name of the area and the function of that area. Also give you the possible symptoms the person must be suffering if he has that deviation located in that part of the brain. To do this, to do brain mapping, you must need a 19 channel a 19 channel amplifier. If you can get it, this is the best scenario. You cannot do like a full brain mapping with coherent values without a 19 channels EEG amplifier like this. This is the one I use in my private practice and also in my lab. We have a lot of, well, not a lot. We have three BrainMaster discovery amplifiers. We conduct different experiments with that, but you will need that in order to do brain mapping. And if you have that, you can also do everything else. One channel neurofeedback, two channels, four channel neurofeedback, C-score neurofeedback, S-Loretta neurofeedback. So having 90 channels it is an advantage to have. What is required? We need training. I told you that I started this on 2018, and I still receive training. I still consult my case with other professional who has more experience than me. And QEEG must be learned. and it requires experience, practice, practice, and practice. There's no way to learn this without taking classes and practice with a mentor that guides you into the process. Right here, oh, I have like 7 minutes left. Right here, you will see like some of the recommended readings. Uh, I'm not able to understand this. I believe this book is in German. I'm not sure. But I definitely recommend this handbook, which was edited by Thomas Kalura and John Frederick. Start here. You may find this on Amazon, I believe. All right. So in case, just pretty quickly, in case you don't have a 19 channel amplifier, there are other ways to do some brain maps, uh, which is called, let me see, where is the PowerPoint here? It is called Quick Q, Clinical Q, or Shringle Q. This is another way to map the brain. It has some advantage and some disadvantage, but it's a pretty awesome way to measure the brain activity if you don't, in case you only have an amplifier with one channel. And with one channel, you can do a lot. Schwingel, which is this researcher that you are looking at the photo, have developed in the 80s a way to analyze. Let me see if I can find the process here. A way to analyze. But for this, you need to first record on a brain side for 1 minute, then move the electrode to other side for 1 minute, and so on. You have to do this like 20 times. And then when you have the 20 sides recorded, then you can map. So the advantage of this is that you can get an idea of how the brain looks in terms of activation, but you may not be able to calculate coherence or connectivity variables. For connectivity variables, you need QEEG. But if you are not interested on getting connectivity variables, you just do a clinical Q and you will be good. So IFEN has also developed some platform in which you can upload your Shingle clinical Q data, and it gives you these beautiful reports. You may have some metrics like in F3, F4 theta amplitude, and they give you like the amplitudes here, F3 790 microvolts, and on F4 760. Then it can give you a really important information about the ratio, theta beta ratios, and so on, so on. So if you don't have 19 channels, you might be good with a clinical Q. Well, in summary, what QEEG can reliably achieve today? Objective neurophysiology instead of symptoms cluster. This is something that psychiatry and psychology has been struggling lately, no? Because we are overconfident on the symptoms, and symptoms may be the same for different pathologies. But when you look at the EEG, you are looking at the neural patterns, specific and localized maybe neural patterns that may correlate better to that symptoms. Subtyping of heterogeneous disorder, just what I said. Many mental illnesses are not neurobiologically homogeneous. So when you do a QEEG, you may get more information about the subtypes of those disorder. Treatment prediction and monitoring, bridge between clinical practice and system neurobiology. And this is my work on my university is this. It's trying to do research to inform the clinical practice. Where QEEG is revolutionizing our understanding is shifting focus from symptoms to neural networks, support for mechanism-based psychiatry, precision psychiatry and psychology, early detection, as and as I said earlier, real-time connection between basic research and clinical practice, integration with machine learning for pattern prediction and prediction analysis. Then with neurofeedback, when you combine, which I encourage you, if you are doing neurofeedback without QEEG, well, this is your last day in doing that. Try to learn QEEG because QEEG may inform you about other things that with simple one-size-fits-all neurofeedback may mislead you. And we are in a time of a personalized treatment to respond to a specific brain pattern, for example, in the QEEG field. So in neurofeedback, we just feedback the signal, the EEG signal to the individual, so he can implicitly and explicitly control the signal, so he can gain some more neural regulation. So if you do this blindly without a baseline, it might work, but it might also not work. So having a QEEG guide neurofeedback practice is the best scenario to target, to have more precise protocols, to target a specific brain sites. And you will not know that if you don't brain map before doing neurofeedback. Boundaries, not QEEG is not an independent diagnostic procedure. It might get more significant when you do QEEG, but also you do the traditional psychometrics that we in psychiatry and psychology we use, like an intelligence test, or for example, I do QEEG, but I also do ERPs, evoked potentials analysis. And when you combine everything, you combine the neuropsychological test to QEEG to ERPs, and then you have a more very robust way to diagnose someone with a specific pathology. You know, and also the QEEG is highly dependent on data quality, standard data. So in the QEEG course, if you have a practice, usually I teach the theoretical part, but sometimes in Spain, sometimes in Germany, you may get some on live practice, and if you can get on those, then you can learn how to acquire data and how to standardize your acquisition, which is really important. It validates our data. So finally, QEEG does not replace diagnosis, but rather refines them neurobiologically. It makes mental illness measurable, differentiable, and increasingly predictable. And that's it for all. Thank you very much.
Learn more about our neurofeedback research, training philosophy, and workshops.